The event is organized as part of the programs on human rights, the PhD programs on human rights and pluralism of the Department of Law of the University of Palermo. We chose this topic this year because we thought that the students, first of all, the students of the PhD programs that are involved, but also the students that can enroll in the program, could benefit from gaining a wider understanding of the idea of property. Because usually if you don't work on property, what you think is that it's either private property or res nullius. There's just nothing else in between. So the idea behind it was to try to introduce students to the plurality of the topics that relate to property. And of course, commons are a major part of this discussion. So we will look at the ownership on one side of land, because that is the beginning that we have, but also we will look at other things that can be owned and in the different ways in which they can be owned. Starting from land, trying to understand the fact that not just private property is the only option, necessarily brings us to commons. And well, we will look at the history of the commons, we will look at their foundations, but we also wanted to look at some of the reality of the commons, that trying to see how that connection can be done for students. How do we connect the idea of property with peoples that are living in towns, most of them? And I think that what we tried to do inviting GICO and a talk on urban commons is a way to connect students with what the reality of the commons can be for our everyday life, and not just study indigenous peoples, which are part of the program as well, but we wanted to open it up to realities that we can live with every day. So that's why we also have a workshop which will be organized by GICO. In particular, will be held by Antonio Vercellone and Alessandra Quarta.
What Giulia said about property and the different conceptualizations that property can have, it is really connected with the job and with the work we're doing with GICO. In fact, I think the urban commons are or maybe one of the major examples of these different ways to conceive property beyond public and private in the European dimension. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to talk the main legal and theoretical features of the experiences of urban commons in Europe that we're mapping with the GECO project, try to highlight how, from the bottom up, communities can actually, through cooperation, create new forms of property, also against privatization, against gentrification, and creating new models which go beyond public and private in favor of the rights of communities and people.